Hello, so whilst I attempt to look comfortable on this swing, which is rigged far too low for me because it's my 4-year-old daughter, I wanted to wish a warm welcome to all my new subscribers and my eternal gratitude to those of you who have been following me for many years. I've had a wonderful week with so many visitors to my studio this week, and so it's been an opportunity for me to get out of my thought process and to actually kind of find a way to articulate some of the ideas which I've been forming and processing within my recent work. And so this is a brief synopsis of some of the discussions that I've had over this last week. So whilst my work will always be intimately bound with the tiny changes and subtleties of the seasons and weather and species within the landscape, my recent work brings the landscape into a modern context, and specifically the relationship between humanity and its landscape and within the modern climate crisis. And so these marks here represent man-made's footprint or signature within the landscape. These graffiti tags have kind of landed on the landscape, and in a sense these ones are dominating the landscape in the same way that a sea defences or something will attempt to control nature and hold nature back. These dominate this landscape here, whereas within some of my other work the graffiti tags have kind of been embedded within the landscape, and nature is overgrowing and reclaiming these man-made structures here. So I'm fascinated by this interplay that you get within urban walls and across the seasons, and this relationship that's just dynamically happening across the landscape within this layering of man-made marks, structures that we impose and build within the landscape, and the way that nature is reclaiming and then we're reasserting, and this layering between the two. And so I've got these bucolic serene scenes that are interrupted by some of these gestures. In some ways they're dominating, and in other ways they're being reclaimed. And then it's all originated by my love and fascination of graffiti as an art form. This simple, precise, unapologetic marks that are just made really, really swiftly, that somehow seem to encapsulate man's ancient impulse to leave their mark without doing just a literal representation of buildings and roads and pylons and stuff like that within the landscape. And then there's there was a practical element that has given birth to this style, which, when working plein air in the rain, when you're using synthetic materials, solvent-based spray paints and marker pens and stuff like that, they represent mankind, but they behave like that when working with the materials. So they resist the impact and the activity of nature, whereas the water-based media tends to work more in sympathy with nature and actually invites the marks of the rain to create the textures on the surface. So it's this symbolic representation of humanity and nature with layering, and then this practical use of the materials that just seems like such fertile ground to explore the modern climate crisis and the landscape within today's perspective. So there you have it. This is my latest thinking on my work, and my recent stuff is really incorporating fluorescence to expand this sense of drama, and it's just really fertile work, ideas and ground. I can't wait to stretch out some more canvas and push these ideas a little bit further forward.